Hey guys, so today I want to go over just some cueing tips on coaching hip extension. A lot of people really like to use, activate your glutes, squeeze your glutes, crack the walnut for coaching cues. Today I'm going to try to give you some better options and then go over why they're better options. So, biggest hip extension exercise is obviously going to be the deadlift. What we're going to do is if I have Charlie set up for the deadlift, and say he's a client that I'm having a lot of trouble with getting the glutes activated, getting full hip extension. Typically, a lot of people will have them in the bottom. So go to the bottom and say, all right, I want you to really squeeze your glutes. And the problem is, sometimes it'll cause a posterior tilt. When we want a nice neutral spine, we actually want him a little bit more on the more extension side. And so, if I really want to concentrate on Charlie getting his glutes activated, I should really be more concentrated on the hip extension. In which case, I might block right here so that his hips have to extend and he gets taller, and I might say, all right, I want you to drive through the floor and bring your hips into your hands. In which case, then I just cue the hip extension, and I'm actually going to get a lot more glute activation. Go ahead and relax. The other thing that a lot of people will do, if I can stand all the way at the top, is a lot of people will actually coach at the top to crack a walnut with your butt. We've actually gotten out of that habit because you're not actually coaching the fibers of the glute that's going to extend the hip. Instead, you're going to coach the fibers that are going to externally rotate the hip, which might actually give a false image of hip extension. So if I have Charlie try to squeeze crack a walnut with his butt, you'll notice that he starts to externally rotate. If you actually squeeze your butt cheeks together, you'll notice that you start to externally rotate. Rather than if I cue, push into the floor, get your hips through, then I got true hip extension. So you got to be really careful about what you start to say because you're going to have the athlete then process it and activate the fibers accordingly. So now you can use this in the deadlift. Like I said, I really like the driving the floor away. I really like the hips into the hands. I really like to help these with propulsion patterns. So you can also use it for a lunge. So if I have Charlie in the bottom of a lunge, instead of cueing him, to get his glutes activated, I am going to cue him, push that floor away, act like you're going to take your head through the ceiling. So go ahead and push through, and it's going to coach more hip extension. You'll see this is a really good cue for a lot of people that like to do this number where they go quad dominant and then step through. I want them driving right through their heel and trying to put a hole into the floor as they come up. And then, if they're holding something, you can cue hips into the hands, or you can just coach hips through. So go ahead and do it again, Charlie. Good. And sometimes it does even help if you cue them to actually act like they're actually about to take another step. So now, a lot of people might start to feel weird if you coach them to put a hole in the ground, push through the ground. They might try to do it too hard and just go straight up like that. So we're going to want to coach the full hip extension. So one drill that we have found extremely handy is what we call the Gandalf press. It's just a half kneeling hinge drill. And they have this to make sure that they're keeping the anterior core on, so he's driving into the ground. And what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start to put him into a hinge pattern, so he pulls back, still keeping his chest out. And then I'm going to cue him to drive his knee to the ground and lift this up. So he's going to drive his knee to the ground, he's going to pull him forward, he's going to lift up. The fact that he's pushing into the ground hard enough that he can keep this knee up shows me that that glute has to get extended. If you get in a half kneel and you lift this up, you're going to feel the extension fibers of the glute max start to activate. Since he's pushing into the ground, it's also going to cue the anterior core on. So it's perfect for those people that are getting kind of the funky lockouts, that aren't able to get the full extension on the hip, and are just going through their lower back. So if I have Charlie go again, sometimes I'll have them push their butt to the wall, and then come back through, drive through the floor, and lift up. And a lot of times I've actually seen people after a few sets of this drill start to actually loosen up their hip flexors and get more extension each time. Okay? So if you're having any trouble with some of your clients or some of your athletes that just aren't getting that hip extension, this is a great drill to start trying to use, and it gets them used to that cue of driving through the floor.